Hi, this is Hermilia B. Gratuito. This time, let us study about sentence fragment. Fragment is one of the three problematic sentences. Fragment sentences are unfinished sentences. It lacks a subject or a verb, or simply, they don't contain a complete idea. When you analyze a group of words looking for the main clause, you have to find three things: a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. If one of these three is missing, a fragment results. Kinds of fragments. Subordinate clause fragment. A subordinate clause fragment, sometimes called a dependent clause fragment, will begin with a subordinate conjunction, a relative pronoun, or a relative adverb. You will also find a subject and a verb. Unfortunately, this combination of words will not express a complete thought by itself. So let us have an example. Because Chase caught the eye of the beautiful brunette. What? It is a fragment. Because is a subordinate conjunction. Chase is the subject, caught is the verb. But the problem is there is the word because. So it doesn't convey a complete thought by itself. Words that will begin a subordinate clause fragment. These are classified into three. 1. Subordinate conjunction, as you can see. 2. Relative pronouns. There are only 7. And there are 3 relative adverbs. Second is participle phrase fragments. A participle phrase fragment will begin with a word ending in ing or ed. Or the fragment will open with an irregular past participle. More words will follow to finish the phrase, but nowhere will you find a main clause to complete the thought. By itself, a participle phrase cannot be a sentence. Okay, your marker for this type of fragment is the present or past participle. And you can find this at the beginning of the fragment. Look at this example. Sunning themselves on the hot concrete until they heard human feet crashing down the sidewalk. See, sunning. It ends with ing. But it doesn't convey a complete thought. Okay. Next is infinitive phrase fragments. An infinitive phrase fragment will begin with the word to, followed by the base form of the verb. Okay, it's like this. To plus verb equals infinitive. Although more words will follow to finish the phrase, you will not find a main clause to complete the thought. An infinitive phrase by itself cannot be a sentence. Look for the to plus verb because this will be your marker for this type of fragment. Study this example. To catch butterflies for her biology project. The word to catch, to plus verb. This is an infinitive. Number 4. Afterthought fragments. An afterthought fragments clarifies earlier information by providing specific details but does not contain main clause. These words and phrases frequently begins with especially, except, excluding, for example, for instance, including, like, and as such. These are your markers for this type of fragments. So we have an example. For example, licky pins, candy wrappers, dollar bills, and paper clips. there is the word for example. This one makes this as afterthought fragments. Lonely verb fragments. Writers will sometimes forget to include a subject in a sentence. The result is a verb pinning for its partner. Subject is missing. With the subject missing, the word groups thus become a lonely verb fragment. A lonely verb fragment will begin with a coordinating conjunction and, but, for, or, nor, so, and yet. These are the marker for this time of fragment. But this coordinating conjunction precedes the action. So example, and thus through the downpour as raindrops soften the hairspray shell, holding her elaborate cough in place. There is the word an. So this make this a fragment. This one. Number 6. Appositive fragments. An appositive is a noun phrase that renames and clarifies another noun. Because an appositive can be long, you can sometimes mistake one for a complete sentence. By itself, however, an appositive is not a sentence. It usually begins with a noun and usually include one or more clarifying phrases or subordinate clauses after it. Okay, here are the examples. The unprepared student who was always begging for an extra pencil and a couple sheets of blank paper. What? What is she doing? She's an unprepared student. So, it's an appositive. A slacker wasting his afternoon in front of the television. What is he doing? Okay. Fixing subordinate clause fragments. When you have a subordinate clause fragment, removing one thing, the subordinating word, will give you the necessary main clause. Look at this fragment. We have this fragment a while ago. Because Chase caught the eye of the beautiful brunette in algebra. What? Removing because makes the thought complete. So, it would say, Chase is the subject. Caught is the verb. Now you have a sentence. Chase caught the eye of the beautiful brunette in algebra. We have removed the word because. Fixing participle phrase fragments. One way to fix a participle phrase fragment is to add the necessary main clause. Our example a while ago was sunning themselves on the hot concrete until they heard human feet crossing down the sidewalk. Remember, there is the word sunning. It ends with ing. So, if you add another word information and complete the verb, the problem would be fixed. Okay, let us have the correction, and the correction would be look like this. The little lizards were sunning themselves on the hot concrete until they heard human feet crossing down the sidewalk. Who were sunning themselves? The little lizards. Fixing the afterthought fragments. You can fix an afterthought fragment one of two ways. One option is to insert the missing subject and verb so that you have a main clause. This option works best when you have, for instance, as the transition beginning the fragment. Okay, For example, the desk drawer contained leaky pens, candy wrappers, dollar bills, and paper clips. Another way is to attach the afterthought fragment to the end of the main clause. This option works best when the fragment begins with except. This one. Except, excluding, including, like, and such. So we have an example. Jan has many unsafe habits, such as leaving the stove on and teasing Maine dogs. The phrase such as is attached. So it becomes now a complete a complete sentence that expresses a complete thought. Fixing lonely verb fragments. One missing element is the subject. So insert the subject. This would make a lonely verb fragment complete or becomes a sentence. Example. Betty dust through the downpour as raindrops soften the hairspray shell holding her elaborate coif in place. This example was given before, but it doesn't have the word Betty. So, we insert the word Betty so that we can complete the thought. Fixing appositive fragments. You have two options again when fixing a positive fragment. Since an appositive contains a noun which can conveniently become a subject, adding a verb will often fix the problem. Okay, add verb. Look at this example. The unprepared student was always begging for an extra pencil and a couple sheets of blank paper. Scream. The word scream has been added. It is a verb. Okay. Second way to fix the appositive fragment is to connect the appositive to a main clause. Example. Brian, a slacker wasting his afternoon in front of the television, opened a bag of potato chips instead of his chemistry textbook. The appositive, a slacker wasting his afternoon in front of the television, is connected to the main clause. Open a bag of potato chips instead of his chemistry textbook. So this one now becomes a complete sentence. Fixing infinitive phrase fragments. You can convert an infinitive phrase fragment into a sentence by adding a subject and conjugating a verb. Example. Amber watched in dismay as Dr. Fraser poured his chemistry experiment into the sink. Remember, you have to add subject. Subject here is Amber. And you also have to conjugate the verb. The verb is what's conjugated into past tense, watch. So that is how to fix infinitive phrase fragments. Rules to remember. Number 1. Sentence fragments can be very confusing. Avoid sentence fragments in professional writing, formal writing, essays, business letters, and compositions. No, no, no. Sentence fragments are written and acceptable in the following types of writing. When you write poetry, when you write quotes and quoted speech, and when you write plays. So sentence fragments can be used in this type of writing. Sentence fragments are acceptable in these situations because the author wants to capture what was actually said or felt. It doesn't matter if it is fragments. Time for a quiz. Tell whether a group of words is a fragment or a sentence. There is already an answer. Okay. The cow in the field. What? It's a fragment because it doesn't convey a complete thought. Number 2. People talk. Although this sentence is composed only of 2 words, it conveys a complete thought. Who talk? People. What have people done? Talk. So, this is a complete thought. Number 3. Every day after school. What? So, this becomes a fragment because we cannot understand. What? Every day after school. What? I don't know. This is Hermilia B. Gratuito. What's for the last of the 3 series of problem sentence? Okay, bye-bye.